This podcast is supported by the terrifying new horror film Keeper. From Osgood Perkins, the director of Longlegs and the Monkey, comes a nightmarish trip starring Tatiana Maslany. Master of horror James Wan, creator of The Conjuring, praises Keeper as a terrifying ghostly descent into madness. The horror event of the season is now available on digital. Watch Keeper at home today.
Already feeling the chill this time of year? It's time to spice up your holidays with Torchbearer sauces. They've been featured on 8 seasons of Hot Ones with 7 of their sauces. Torchbearer Sauces is a small, family and friend-owned and operated business that's been handcrafting gourmet sauces and condiments in the heart of Central PA for 20 years. They prioritize flavor over heat, but don't worry, they can also bring the spice. With all natural and preservative-free ingredients. They even do sauce collabs with musicians and other artisans, including Shinedown, Necrogoblicon, and Danny Wood. Don't miss their early access and Black Friday sales from November 19th to December 2nd. Get the best prices of the year and stock up on hot sauce gifts like their advent calendar, sampler packs, bundles, and more. That's Torchbearer Sauces, accidentally healthy, intentionally delicious. Visit torchbearersauces.com. And welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. Before I begin, for those who don't follow me on social media, I wanted to let you know to look out on Monday the 22nd. I'm releasing a bonus episode where I will be reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. It's been a request for many years from many listeners, and I'm feeling some Christmas whimsy this year. Maybe it's finding out that Santa is a tulpa. I don't know. But anyway, that will be out Monday, and please keep an eye out for more sporadic bonus episodes along with regular episodes that will be coming out from between now and the new year. Let me soothe you through winter storms, holiday blues, or just to keep you company. This week, keeping in the tradition of always telling you at least one old-timey story in the winter, I have a story by John Galsworthy. The copy I read this from, funnily, still has the attached notation at the top from the original magazine it was printed in 1920. I thought I'd share it with you. It reads, "A short story by Galsworthy is an event. He writes so few, and those few always so movingly and searchingly fine. His new play, The Skin Game, such a success in London, will be seen here in the winter, and there are rumors that he himself may be over. In Alexander Woolcott's article on another page of this issue, there are some interesting things about this play and about him. Turn to them after you read this masterly story." Although I think we're about a century too late to go see his new play, we can still keep one of Mr. Galsworthy's stories alive. This is Timber. Sir Arthur Hirries, Baronet of Hirries, in a northern county, came to the decision to sell his timber in that state of mind common during the war, which may be called patrio-profiteering. Like newspaper proprietors, writers on strategy, shipbuilders, owners of works, makers of arms, and the rest of the working classes at large, his mood was, "Let me serve my country, and if thereby my profits are increased, let me put up with it and invest in national bonds." With an encumbered estate and some of the best coverts in that northern county, it had not become practical politics to sell his timber till the government wanted it at any price. To let his shooting had been more profitable, till now a patriotic action and a stroke of business had become synonymous. A man of 65, but not yet gray, with a reddish tinge in his mustache, cheeks, lips, and eyelids, slightly knock-kneed and with large, rather spreading feet, he moved in the best circles in a somewhat embarrassed manner. At the enhanced price, the timber at Hirries would enfranchise him for the remainder of his days. He sold it, therefore, one day of April, when the war news was bad, to a government official on the spot. He sold it at 5:30 in the afternoon, practically for cash down, and drank a stiff whiskey and soda to wash away the taste of the transaction. For, though no sentimentalist, his great-great-grandfather had planted most of it, and his grandfather the rest. Royalty, too, had shot there in its time, and he himself, never much of a sportsman, had missed more birds in the rides and hollows of his fine coverts than he cared to remember. But the country was in need, and the price considerable. Bidding the government official goodbye, he lighted a cigar and went across the park to take a farewell stroll among his timber. He entered the home covert by a path leading through a group of pear trees just come into bloom, smoking cigars and drinking whiskey in the afternoon in preference to tea. Sir Arthur Hirries had not much sense of natural beauty, but those pear trees impressed him, greenish-white against the blue sky, and fleecy, thick clouds which looked as if they had snow in them. They were deuced pretty and promised a good year of fruit, if they escaped the late frosts, though it certainly looked like freezing tonight. He paused a moment at the wicket gate to glance back at those scantily clothed white maidens posing on the outskirts of his timber. Such was not the vision of Sir Arthur Hirries, who was considering how he should invest the balance of the cash down after paying off his mortgages. National bonds. The country was in need. Passing through the gate, he entered the ride of the home covert. Variety lay like color on his woods. They stretched for miles, and his ancestors had planted almost every kind of tree. Beech, oak, birch, sycamore, ash, elm, hazel, holly, pine, a lime tree and a hornbeam here and there, and farther in among the winding coverts, spinneys and belts of larch. The evening air was sharp, and sleet showers came whirling from those bright clouds. He walked briskly, drawing at his richly fragrant cigar, the whiskey still warm within him. He walked, thinking, with a gentle melancholy slowly turning a little sulky, that he would never again be pointing out with his shooting stick to such or such a guest, where he was to stand to get the best birds over him. The pheasants had been let down during the war, but he put up 2 or 3 old cocks, who went clattering and whirring out to left and right, and rabbits crossed the rides quietly to and fro within easy shot. He came to where royalty had stood 15 years ago. During the last drive, he remembered royalty saying, "Very pretty shooting at that last stand, Hirries. Birds just about as high as I like them." The ground, indeed, rose rather steeply there, and the timber was oak and ash, with a few dark pines sprinkled into the bare, grayish twiggery of the oaks, always costive in spring, and the just greening feather of the ashes. "They'll be cutting those pinnies first," he thought, strapping trees straight as lines in Euclid and free of branches save their tops. In the brisk wind, those tops swayed a little and gave forth soft complaint. 3 times my age, he thought. Prime timber. The ride wound sharply and entered a belt of larch, whose steep rise entirely barred off the rather sinister sunset, a dark and wistful wood, delicate dun and gray, whose green shoots and crimson tips would have scented the evening coolness, but for the cigar smoke in his nostrils. They'll have this spinney for pit props, he thought, and, taking a cross ride through it, he emerged in a heathery glen of birch trees. No forester, he wondered if they would make anything of those whitened, glistening shapes. His cigar had gone out now, and he leaned against one of the satin-smooth stems, under the lacery of twig and bud, sheltering the flame of a relighting match. A hare loped away among the bilberry shoots. A jay, paint like a fan, squawked and flustered past him in the glen. Interested in birds and wanting just one more jay to complete a fine stuffed group of them, Sir Arthur, though devoid of a gun, followed to see where the beggar's nest was. The glen dipped rapidly, and the character of the timber changed, assuming greater girth and solidity. There was a lot of beech here, a bit he did not know, for though taken in by the beaters, no guns could be stationed there because of the lack of the undergrowth. The jay had vanished, and light had begun to fall. I must get back, he thought, or I shall be late for dinner. He debated for a moment whether to retrace his steps or to cut across the beaches and regain the home covert by a loop. The jay, reappearing to the left, decided him to cross the beech grove. He did so and took a narrow ride up through a dark bit of mixed timber with heavy undergrowth. The ride, after favoring the left for a little, bent away to the right. Sir Arthur followed it hurriedly, conscious that twilight was gathering fast. It must bend again to the left in a minute. It did, and then to the right, and the undergrowth, remaining thick. He could only follow on, or else retrace his steps. He followed on, beginning to get hot in spite of a sleet shower falling through the dusk. He was not framed by nature for swift traveling, his knees turning in and his toes turning out. But he went at a good bat, uncomfortably aware that the ride was still taking him away from home, and expecting it at any minute to turn left again. It did not, and hot, out of breath, a little bewildered, he stood still in 3/4 darkness to listen. Not a sound, save that of wind in the tops of the trees, and a faint creaking of timber where 2 stems had grown athwart and were touching. The path was a regular will-o'-the-wisp. He must take a beeline of it through the undergrowth to another ride. He had never before been among his timber in the dusk, and he found the shapes of the confounded trees more weird, as if menacing, than he had ever dreamed of. He stumbled quickly on in and out of them, among the undergrowth, without coming to a ride. Here I am, stuck in this damned wood, he thought. To call these formidably encircling shapes a wood gave him relief. After all, it was his wood, and nothing very untoward could happen to a man in his own wood, however dark it might get. He could not be more than 1.5 miles at the outside of his dining room. He looked at his watch, whose hands he could just see. Nearly 7:30. The sleet had become snow, but it hardly fell on him, so thick was the timber just there. But he had no overcoat, and suddenly he felt that first sickening little drop in his chest, which presages alarm. Nobody knew he was in this damned wood, and in a quarter of an hour it would be black as your hat. You must get on and out. The trees among which he was stumbling produced quite a sick feeling now, in one who, hitherto, had never taken trees seriously. What monstrous growths they were! The thought that seeds, tiny seeds, or saplings planted by his ancestors could attain huge, impending, and imprisoning bulk, ghostly, great growths mounting up to heaven and shutting off this world, exasperated and unnerved him. He began to run, caught his foot in a root, and fell flat on his face. The cursed trees! They seemed to have a down on him. Rubbing elbows and forehead with his snow-wetted hands, he leaned against a trunk to get his breath and summon the sense of direction to his brain. Once, as a young man, he had been bushed at night in Vancouver Island. Quite a scary business, but he had come out all right, though his camp had been the only civilized spot within a radius of 20 miles. And here he was, on his own estate, within a mile or two of home, getting into a funk. It was childish, and he laughed. The wind answered, sighing and threshing in the treetops. There must be a regular blizzard blowing now, and, to judge by the cold, from the north, but whether northeast or northwest was the question. Besides, how to keep definite direction without a compass in the dark? The timber, too, with its trunks, diverted the wind into keen, directionless drafts. He looked up, but could make nothing of the 2 or 3 stars that he could see. It was a mess, and he lighted a second cigar with some difficulty, for he had begun to shiver. The wind in this blasted wood cut through his Norfolk jacket and crawled about his body, which had become hot from his exertions, and now it felt clammy and half-frozen. This would mean pneumonia if he didn't look out, and half-feeling his way from trunk to trunk, he started on again. But for all he could tell, he might be going round in a circle, might even be crossing rides without realizing, and again that sickening drop occurred in his chest. He stood still and shouted. He had the feeling of shouting into walls of timber, dark and heavy, which threw the sound back at him. "Curse you," he thought. "I wish I'd sowed you 6 months ago." The wind fleered and mowed in the treetops, and he started off again at a run in that dark wilderness, till hitting his head against a low branch, he fell, stunned. He lay several minutes, unconscious, came to himself deadly cold, and struggled up on his feet. "By Jove," he thought, with a sort of stammer in his brain. "This is a bad business. I may be out here all night." For an unimaginative man, it was extraordinary what vivid images he had just then. He saw the face of the government official who had bought his timber, and the slight grimace with which he had agreed to the price. He saw his butler after the gong had gone, standing like a stuck pig by the sideboard waiting for him to come down. What would they do when he didn't come? Would they have the sense to imagine that he might have lost his way in the coverts, and take lanterns to search for him? Far more likely they would think he had walked over to Greenland's or Barrymore and stayed there for dinner. And suddenly, he saw himself slowly freezing out here in the snowy night among this cursed timber. With a vigorous shake, he butted against the darkness among the tree trunks. He was angry now, with himself, with the night, with the trees, so angry that he actually let out with his fist at a trunk against which he had stumbled and scored his knuckles. It was humiliating, and Sir Arthur Hirries was not accustomed to humiliation. In anybody else's wood, yes. But to be lost like this in one's own coverts, well, if he had to walk all night, he would get out. And he plunged on doggedly in the darkness. He was fighting with his timber now, as if the thing were alive and each tree an enemy. In the interminable stumbling exertion of that groping progress, his angry mood gave place to half-comatose philosophy. Trees. His great-great-grandfather had planted them. His own was the fifth man's life. But the trees were almost as young as ever. They made nothing of man's life. He snickered, and a man made nothing of theirs. Did they know they were going to be cut down? All the better if they did, and were sweating in their shoes. He pinched himself. His thoughts were becoming so queer. He remembered that once, when his liver was out of order, the trees had seemed to him like solid, tall diseases, bulbous, scarred, cavernous, witch-armed, fungoid emanations of the earth. Well, so they were, and he was among them, on a snowy, pitch-black night, engaged in this death struggle.
The Harbingers is a fiction podcast about the first two magicians of our modern era. Adam and Amy were both grad students studying a long-dead language, academic rivals, and brief paramours.
Yes, I found her attractive, and we went out one time.
If you suddenly had the power and influence to change the world, how would you use it?
Literally the only thing that's a wrong answer to the question, what do you do if you get magic powers, is exactly the same fucking thing you would be doing if you didn't get the goddamn magic power.
The Harbingers is a new fiction podcast from the mind of Gabriel Urbino, creator of Wolf 359. If you like magical rivals, political machinations, snappy dialogue, and dreaming of saving the world, The Harbingers is a show for you.
So, now what?
You can find The Harbingers in all the places you usually find podcasts.
The occurrence of the word death in his thoughts brought him up, all standing. Why couldn't he concentrate his mind on getting out? Why was he mooning about the life and nature of trees instead of trying to remember the conformation of his coverts so as to rekindle in himself some sense of general direction? He struck a number of matches to get a sight of his watch again. Great heaven! He had been walking nearly 2 hours since he last looked at it. And in what direction? They said a man in a fog went round and round because of some kink in his brain. He began now to feel the trees, searching for a hollow trunk. A hollow would be some protection from the cold. His first conscious confession of exhaustion. He was not in training, and he was 65. The thought, I can't keep this up much longer, caused a second explosion of sullen anger. Damnation! He was here, for all he could tell, standing where he had sat perhaps a dozen times on his spread shooting stick, watching sunlight on bare twigs, or the nose of his spaniel twitching beside him, listening to the tap of the beater sticks and the shrill, drawn-out, "Mark! Cock over!" Would they let the dogs out to pick up his tracks? No. 10 to 1 they would assume he was staying the night at the Somertons or at Lady Mary's, as he had done before now, after dining there. And suddenly his strained heart leaped. He had struck a ride again. His mind slipped back into place like an elastic let go, relaxed, quivering gratefully. He had only to follow this ride, and somewhere, somehow, he would come out, and be hanged if he would let them know what a fool he had made of himself. Right or left? Which way? He turned so that the flying snow came at his back, hurrying forward between the denser darkness on either hand, where the timber stood in walls, moving his arms across and across his body as if dragging a concertina to full stretch, to make sure that he was keeping in the patch. He went what seemed an interminable way like this, till he was brought up, all standing by trees, and could find no outlet, no continuation. Turning in his tracks with the snow in his face now, he retraced his steps till once more he was brought up short by trees. He stood panting. It was ghastly, and in a panic he dived this way and that to find the bend, the turning, the way on. The sleet stung his eyes, the wind fleered and whistled, the boughs sloughed and moaned. He struck matches, trying to shade them with his cold, wet hands, but one by one, they went out. And still he found no turning. The ride must have a blind alley at either end. The turning must be down the side somewhere. Hope revived in him. Never say die. He began a second retracing of his steps, feeling the trunks along one side to find a gap. His breath came with difficulty. What would old Broadley say if he could see him, soaked, sweating, frozen, tired to death, stumbling along in the darkness among this cursed timber? Old Broadley, who had told him his heart was in poor case. A gap. No trunks, a ride. He turned, felt a sharp pain in his knee and pitched forward. He could not rise. The knee, dislocated 6 years ago, was out again. Sir Arthur Hirries clenched his teeth. Nothing more could happen to him. But after a minute, blank and bitter, he began to crawl along the new ride. Oddly, he felt less discouraged and alarmed on hands and knee, for he could use but one. It was a relief to have his eye fixed on the ground, not peering at the tree trunks, or perhaps there was less strain for the moment on his heart. He crawled, stepping every minute or so to renew his strength. He crawled mechanically, waiting for his heart, his knee, his lungs to stop him. The earth was snowed over, and he could feel its wetness as he scraped along. Good tracks to follow if anybody struck them. But in this dark forest, in one of his halts, drying his hands as best he could, he struck a match and, sheltering it desperately, fumbling out his watch, past 10 o'clock, he wound the watch and put it back against his heart. If only he could wind his heart. And squatting there, he counted his matches. 4. Well, he thought grimly, I won't light them to show me my blasted trees. I've got a cigar left. I'll keep them for that. And he crawled on again. He must keep going while he could. He crawled till his heart and lungs and knee struck work, and, leaning his back against a tree, sat huddled together, so exhausted that he felt nothing save a sort of bitter heartache. He even dropped asleep, waking with a shudder, dragged from a dream armchair at the club into this cold, wet darkness and the blizzard moaning in the trees. He tried to crawl again, but could not, and for some minute stayed motionless, hugging his body with his arms. Well, he thought dimly, I have done it. His mind was in such lethargy that he could not even pity himself. Then he remembered his cigar. He got it out, bit the end off, and began with infinite precautions to prepare for lighting it. The first 2 matches went out. The third burned, and the cigar drew. He had 1 match left, in case he dozed and let the thing go out. Looking up through the blackness, he could see a star. He fixed his eyes on it and, leaning against the trunk, drew the smoke down into lungs. With his arms crossed tightly on his breast, He smoked very slowly. When it was finished, what? Cold and the wind and the trees until morning? Halfway through the cigar, he dozed off, slept a long time, and woke up so cold that he could barely summon vitality enough to strike his last match. By some miracle, it burned, and he got his cigar to draw again. This time he smoked it nearly to its end, without mentality, almost without feeling, except the physical sense of bitter cold. Once, with a sudden clearing of the brain, he thought faintly, "Thank God I sold the damned trees, and they'll all come down." The thought drifted away in frozen incoherence, drifted out like his cigar smoke into the sleet, and with a faint grin on his lips, he dozed off again. An underkeeper found him at 10 o'clock next morning, blue from cold, under a tall elm tree, within a mile of his bed, one leg stretched out, the other hunched up toward his chest, with its foot dug into the undergrowth for warmth, his head huddled into the collar of his coat, his arms crossed on his breast. They said he must have been dead at least 6 hours. Along one side, snow had drifted against him, but the trunk had saved his back and other side. Above him, the spindly top boughs of that tall tree were covered with green gold clusters of tiny crinkled elm flowers against a deep blue sky, gay as a young song of perfect praise. The wind had dropped, and after the cold of the night, birds were singing their clearest in the sunshine. They did not cut down the elm tree under which they found his body with the rest of the sold timber, but put a little iron fence round it and a little tablet on its trunk. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Mr. Galsworthy, wherever you may be. I don't know anything about John Galsworthy, so again, as with so many old-timey authors, I'm not endorsing anything he may have said or done. I just know that I liked this story a lot, and I found the notation that came with it very charming, because I love little bits of, I would say ephemera, but it's not really ephemera if it's permanently on the internet now, is it? But I enjoy seeing little snippets into the past like that are, I don't know, they were just probably not thought of as much of anything at the time, other than just delivering a little news. Go see his play. He may be there in person. So I hope you enjoyed Timber. It wasn't quite a ghost story, although he does hallucinate at one point. I did also want to offer a little bit of explanation in case there was any confusion about why what this man was doing was so evil. I'm sure you got it, but just in case, they mention it at the beginning, the term patrio-profiteering. So that's basically, it still happens, honestly. I was going to say it doesn't happen anymore. It does. But I will read you the definition. It's the act of making excessive profits by exploiting patriotism or national crises, often involving selling goods or services at inflated prices during wartime, embargoes, or other emergencies, blurring lines between serving the nation and personal enrichment. Again, I'm sure you understood that, but I just wanted to make sure, just in case. It's kind of it's a term that's not used anymore. We have different terms for that act. For the things, we call it war profiteering now, not really patrio-profiteering. So, anyway, thank you so much for listening, And thank you for bearing with me that this episode was late. Yes, I was getting maintenance done on my apartment that was required by the county of Los Angeles, and it required my power being turned off. I thought it was supposed to be restored by 6 p.m. yesterday, and that didn't happen. It wasn't until late into the evening that I you know what? I am sad that the episode was late, and I apologize. But also, I was more sad and for the workers who were out there at night with flashlights and a generator trying to work on electricity while it was very dark and very late. And they were clearly, I guess they got overtime. At least I hope so. I don't know how their particular job works, but anyway, I thank you for bearing with me. That's what happened. And speaking of power outages, next week's episode, I already have it planned. Since it is going to be the Christmas holiday, I will be away. It will be an episode, a story that I've written a few years ago that was featured on the Creepy podcast, and it's about a power outage. It's one of my favorite things that I've written. I really enjoy it. It's very dramatic. It's got ghosts. It's got murder. It's got a lot of stuff in it. I think you're really going to enjoy it if you haven't heard it already on the Creepy podcast. And I think I have a lot more new listeners recently. Well, by the way, welcome to this strange little show. I appreciate you being here. It's my baby. It's my everything. So that will be next week's episode, just to give you a heads up. And let's see what else. Bonus episodes are coming out. Very excited about them. Very excited to finally have some time to write and to give you bonus episodes, including, yes, guided nightmares. I know I've been promising them. My life has been a little, I'm not going to say, it's not turned upside down. It's like turned sideways, like a quarter. It's turned a quarter, and it's just, I'm figuring out a work balance, honestly. A work and other work balance. That's what I'm figuring out. Who needs life? You are my life. Okay, that sounded sad, especially right before Christmas. Okay, I'm going to go. I love you. Oh, a lot of people have been asking me about baking because it is the holidays. I don't know exactly what I'll be baking. I did tell someone on Patreon, though, that I think I'm going to do some savory scones and cinnamon rolls for breakfast for either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Haven't figured out which yet. I'm having a very small Christmas this year. Very, very small. So I don't think I will be baking cookies just because there won't be people to eat them. So, Anyway, I'm going to go, and please feel free to ask me. Please share. We have the Facebook group that's it's called Scare You to Eat, or just post them wherever I can see them. I would love to see your baked goods for Christmas. Oh, speaking of, hold on. Sandy, if you're listening, I should have done this in the beginning of the episode. I'll try to remember to put this somewhere else next time as well. Sandy, I don't know if you want me to say your last name. I got your card. Sandy made me the most beautiful card and drew my logo on this red cardstock, and it looks so cool, and sent me a recipe for lavender lemon shortbread, and it's all handwritten on this recipe card. And this was so meaningful, Sandy. Thank you so much. This made my day. This was so beautiful. I actually stopped by my P.O. box to mail stuff. I had to mail my sister-in-law's gift, and I had to mail a lot of Patreon letters. And I just, on a whim, opened my P.O. box, not thinking there was anything in there, because usually if someone sends me something, they'll let me know ahead of time. Not that that's not shade. I just didn't know there would be anything in there. I'm used to, most of the time when I go to my P.O. box, there's nothing in there, if that's a better way to say it. It's just because, I don't know, which I'm not mad about. I'm making this weird. Anyway, Sandy, I opened my P.O. box, and your card was in there, and it made my day. And anytime anyone shares recipes with me, it means so much to me, because baking is just, you put a little bit of yourself in it, and the fact that you took the time to handwrite everything, it just warms my heart, and I wanted to say thank you. Okay, now I can go, and I will let you all go. Yes. Oh, You know what I did bake recently? I found a really excellent recipe for a small batch Texas sheet cake that tastes just like the full batch. Sometimes when you half recipes, they don't turn out quite the same way because of science, but this one tastes exactly like it. So if anyone's looking for a small batch Texas sheet cake, because they are also a lonely heart like myself, or if you just don't like sweets hanging around, let me know and I will send that to you. It is not my recipe, but it's just excellent. So, okay, I'm going to go and see you when I see you. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams. A cinematic fever dream based on the visionary game.
You did it, didn't you, Jimmy? You woke him up.
No one said it would be easy.
Return to Silent Hill. Exclusively in theaters, January 23rd. This January 30th through February 1st, something legendary is coming to the Ontario Convention Centre. 4 horror icons, 1 legendary weekend. Robert Englund, Bruce Campbell, Kiefer Sutherland, and Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. But that's just the beginning. Dive into bloody disgusting curated Q&A panels. Wander through a giant vendor floor packed with horror merch. Brave the Fear Farm haunt. Explore the Creep IE comics room. And so much more terrifying fun. It's Southern California's ultimate horror weekend. And it's only at Creep IE Con. Tickets are on sale right now at creepiecon.com. That's creepiecon.com.
See you in the dark.